Hey, what's going on, everybody? I don't know. Kind of not running out of content or material, but just kind of running out of things to dance around and talk about. And, you know, we all have our preconceived notions or ideas about different things. And, it's and that applies to a lot of different things that we encounter in our lives, whether it's our work and our employers, or our kids, our significant others, traffic, um, the courts, society in general, the media, and law enforcement is what I've chosen to talk about tonight. So, in some form or way, we either directly or indirectly have contacts, interactions with law enforcement, and those can be good or they can be bad. It can be bad in the sense that you have a warrant for your arrest and you know it, and you get nervous when you get pulled over, and you're trying to decide what to do in that situation. Whether it's a traffic warrant or a murder warrant, it doesn't matter. You know that a court, the police, ultimately in that situation, are going to want you, or going to want to talk to you, and are going to want to probably have you in the back of a police car and have you taken to jail to go to court. So, doesn't we deal with the police if we're speeding? You can get caught doing that, and the first person to admit, I do probably average about 60 on the interstates. The speed limit is 55, so a little bit more than the actual posted speed limit. But I've been pulled over once, and I was in not this car but another one, and it's up to you as a driver to know, kind of what your speed is, and I didn't pay attention to that, and I let my speed get too high, and I looked down and I was going about 100. So about that time, I passed a police officer and got pulled over. He got out and had his hand on his gun, expecting me to either take off, or knowing that he was going to probably arrest me. And for whatever reason, he didn't. I'm glad that he didn't. And since then, I've made more of a point to check my speed and to not go that fast. There's no reason to go that fast on any road. And I would say not even if you're an emergency vehicle, you shouldn't be going that fast. But things happen. So the police I say police, I mean law enforcement in general. This can apply to deputy sheriffs. It can apply to individual municipal police officers, state troopers, or federal agents, wherever the case may be. But police are generally a function of the executive branch, and so they're the police chief in the city that I live in is appointed by the mayor. The mayor's elected, so that's where he gets his authority, and the police chief gets his authority from the statutes. But police officers get that derived authority from being hired and being sworn as an officer in the state. So state agents, state troopers, the same way, to a lesser extent, and then federal agents are part of their respective agencies that they belong to, whether it's the FBI, ATF, DEA, what have you. So there's a lot of tension right now with the police, and a lot of issues right now with the police. I in my off time, I help to run a Facebook group that's sort of big in the area. And so with that, we have a lot of, it's a scanner or radio-based group. So people listen to things that are on scanners or radios, or they observe things and report those to the group, and they're screened, and it's decided whether or not something gets posted or not. So there's that. I do that mainly as a kind of a media sense, but also to alert people to things that are going on around it, because you hear a siren or see a police car or something, you don't always know what it is, and honestly, it really isn't your business typically. But things that could endanger people, or could have an area saturated or blocked off or closed for a while, I try to report that information for a safety kind of a component. But As you know, if you've watched any of the videos on this channel, or maybe you don't know, I have a conviction for, I pled guilty to 4 felonies in 2009, was sentenced to prison. 2010, went to prison until 2015. So I am a convicted felon. I did break the law at one point in my life and went to prison for that. I got out of prison and I went to a halfway house, and that halfway house was pretty involved with the probation and parole authority in my state, and they worked with them closely and tried to ensure that everyone had a successful outcome. That didn't always happen, unfortunately, because some people are just determined to take a good thing and mess it up, I feel. Whether it's people that overdosed or let their addictions get a hold of them again when they're doing good, or maybe they never got a hold of their addictions, or they decided to steal some things and that was worth the relationship that they could have had with the people that were helping them. So it's not for me to judge. I don't wear a black robe to work every day. So I came out of prison with an attitude that I did what I did. It was my fault. I couldn't really blame anybody else for what happened. I am mad at some people and some different professions, I guess, but that really isn't relevant. In the end, it comes down to I did what I did, and I had to pay the consequences. So, as part of that, I don't hate police. I don't hate anyone that wears a badge. That at the end of the day, I believe, I guess, in a service model of police departments, that they're there to serve and protect, and those two are complementary, not exclusive, and not mutually exclusive, certainly. So, I don't think the police exist to be talked down to. I don't think they exist to do a lot of the runs that they put up with and deal with. I don't think they deserve to be shot because they're doing their job. I don't think that murder is right in any stretch of the imagination anywhere, and certainly not to have a cop sit in their car and get shot. This happened a few weeks ago in Los Angeles, and has happened other places as well. So there's kind of this polarizing sense in the world today, in our communities today, that if you support the police, then you support the bad things they do, and that's not the case. And again, those things I don't think are mutually exclusive. I don't think that because you support police and law and order that you should be labeled as a racist or as a fascist or anything else that comes along with that. You can do bad things, and then the community can take it out on you. They can have lynch mobs and whatever you want to have happen. That really doesn't lead to anything good. I'm a member of an agency here, or a group here, called Supporting Heroes, and it was started by a former Jefferson County police officer. He has worked, and I know he's lost a lot of sleep in dealing with a lot of things that he's made his organization about. But basically, they take care of officers' families, police officers, firefighters, paramedics, and EMTs that die in the line of duty. So outreach, counseling, financial support, and a lot of other things, I'm sure. So I also try to patronize a few different things in the world, and one of those is something called Humanizing the Badge. And Humanizing the Badge is run by a guy named Mike the Cop. He retired recently. He's a YouTube individual. And Officer Daniels, who's a TikTok, if anyone talks about that, that's maybe going away thanks to our great and wonderful president. And there's another individual that's a police chaplain that also works with Humanizing the Badge. They've got some things that they're selling. I recommend it. I just got my package, the things that I ordered, and they have these. It's a magnet, pretty good quality magnet. It says, "Dear Officer," and then it says hashtag "We Need You." So a lot of these cities that voted to defund the police, namely Minneapolis, are losing officers. They have officers that have left, or they've totally dismantled their police department as a whole. You have to imagine when that happens that the insurance ratings in a given city are probably going to go down. If you don't have adequate police or fire protection, then companies aren't going to really feel like moving to your city. So Minneapolis, Seattle, Portland, places where a lot of these, I'm going to call them riots, where the riots have happened, they're not doing so great. But they kind of brought it on themselves because they allowed the things to happen. The place where I live at, Louisville, is not doing so great because, our mayor is not, well, he's not the most talented person when it comes to running a city and to dealing with the issues that he's dealt with. In all fairness, I don't think that's really an unfair statement of anyone, but I think there are people that have handled it better, and I think he, to an extent, was complicit and a part of the things that happened and that led to the way that things turned out here. When you have basically an entire command staff that turns their back on the mayor and walks out, that tells you a lot. There's no cohesion. There's no unity within the police department here, and that's the same thing across the country. But at the end of the day, cops are people, and they have a very thankless job to do a lot of times. Whether it's the murder suspect that doesn't go to jail, the homeless person that's had too much to drink, the woman who's had her car stolen because she left her keys in there, the child that's been abused that sees this person that's a stranger that's taken them maybe to Mama and Grandma's house or maybe to protective services and to a foster family for a little bit because mom and dad, had a meth lab going in the house and they got caught. Whatever situation may be, they deal with situations that are not good by definition of them being there, and they're called to do the things they do, and people don't say thank you enough. So with that package from Humanizing the Badge, they have spiral notebooks, they've got cards you can hand to officers, and they also have magnets you can give to them or put on their cars. Wouldn't recommend doing it while they're in the car, certainly, because it might alarm them, but in the end, the police are there to serve and protect, and that doesn't mean they have to take your insults, doesn't mean they have to take having urine and feces and all manner of other bodily fluids thrown on them for any reason, any cause. They do it, and they put up with it, and they come back until they don't. And then when they don't, you have situations like what's happening in Minneapolis, where the city is crying about the police department getting defunded, but then they're wondering why. Well, it's because they got rid of their police department. So, police have a very, very difficult job. I know because I used to work in EMS. And EMS and police typically go on a lot of types of runs. EMS, we have the things that we did and that we saw, and they were, equally as difficult. I think police, you're never going to have a situation where as an EMT or paramedic, you're going to have someone make you kill them. A police officer very well could have that happen, suicide by cop. So, it's not a good job to have. It's a needed job, and to anyone who may be watching this or may have anyone that's a relative of a police officer, thank you. And that applies to deputy sheriffs and state troopers and federal agents as well. After Dallas, the shooting in Dallas happened, I went up to a police officer and identified myself and said that I was a convicted felon. And when I said that, he put his hand on his gun. Maybe it was a sense of paranoia. Maybe it was a sense of what is this guy going to do now? He said that. Is he someone that I locked up? All kinds of things probably went through his mind. But I thanked him for what he did, and let him know that people didn't hate cops. And not everyone hated them, but that's a very difficult mentality to have. It's not for me, but when you go to prison, the worst thing you can be in prison is a rat, and the second worst thing you can be is a cop, because they're the same thing, a cop and a rat. It's just the mentality of the way that things are there. And there's a difference between getting involved in everyone else's business and reporting things that shouldn't go on. You see a man beating a woman up in the middle of the street, maybe she deserved it, maybe she didn't. It's not really your decision to make. But the way that I feel about it is, if you're going to put your business out in public, then you must want some attention, and you must not care about the consequences of what may happen. And not everyone, no one shouldn't have to see that as they're walking out to get their coffee or out to get the newspaper or whatever. And it's a crappy thing to do to another human being. So, it's the police are there and they have a job. They don't get paid enough. Some of their bargaining agreements, I think, have allow certain things to happen that shouldn't happen. And then now here where I live at now, we have several council members that are talking about maybe this bargaining agreement and all these officers that have been proven to be, or alleged to be corrupt, some proven, some alleged to be corrupt. What's going on with our agency here. And we've had a detective that sent 2 people to prison that they know of, and they were totally innocent. We had another detective several years ago that lied and multiple people and got them robbery sentences. We've had officers that have stolen evidence out of the evidence room and given it to their girlfriends recently. They were also the same officer that allegedly groped a female during a traffic stop. So, we have a systemic problem here with officers doing bad things. The LMPD has a strength of about 1,100, and so is it uncommon to think they're going to have some that are bad officers? Certainly not. I was a bad EMT, but the number and the gravity of the situations that they're involving themselves in kind of leads some things to be wondered. And then you have officers like the ones in Minneapolis. One that from what I've seen, the video that I've seen, put the relationship aside, their previous run-ins and stuff with each other. From what I've seen, I believe the officer was deliberately indifferent, didn't care if that man lived or died, and I think he murdered him. I think he needs to go to prison for that, is my thought. I'm not a juror. I'm not able to be in the jury, but I don't live in Michigan either. I don't live in Minneapolis. I don't live where that happened. So I think the other officers that are charged, I think they watched and they allowed it to happen. And that's something to be said about the culture that department had. But we have officers here that several of them here recently that had an overtime scandal where they falsely claimed overtime. They never worked. They double dipped overtime, and they didn't go to prison. They didn't go to prison because they paid the money back before their trial date was scheduled. So we had another detective, the one that put 2 people behind bars for a combined total of 20 years, and they were completely innocent of the thing that he put them in prison for. And at any point during that time, they could have died, and it wouldn't have mattered to him. He pled guilty. A special prosecutor was appointed, and he pled guilty and was going to be given 5 years probation. And I wrote a letter to demand that he be sentenced to prison. It's not that I want to see anybody go to prison, but you're a police officer and you falsely claim that someone committed a murder in both cases, and they didn't do it, and you knew that, and your word was enough. You falsified evidence, you lied under oath to get that person sent to prison. You should go to prison and know what it's like. The city gave them a financial settlement that totaled the millions, and that's not enough. They can't get those 10 years each back from their lives. So, because of something they didn't do, and it needs to be punished, and a message needs to be sent that this isn't going to happen, and it doesn't need to happen. You're going to have bad police. You're going to have good police. I know several good police officers, and they know about my past, and they still talk to me, and we still hang out, and they're still good people, and they're just people. I mean, they have that blue wall that you hear about, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I had a lot of friends of mine that were EMTs and paramedics, and I didn't have a lot of friends of mine that weren't. So you kind of hang around people that are like you, that share your same experiences and know some of the things that you've dealt with because you've dealt with the same things before. And that's I think, a big part of it. It's kind of hard to explain some of the things that paramedics, firefighters, EMTs, police officers deal with to the average person. They just don't have the ability to comprehend it. So that's about all I have, I guess. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below, and I will respond back. So thanks. Have a good night. Be careful.